amazed me. When I was an officer in the army, I had lone soldiers as my soldier, and it was one of the most amazing things to have. So I again thank you for everything you do and you did for Israel, and can't wait to hear you giving your story about those events right after I finish my update. And thank you for being here with us. And if you haven't heard or listened to Ira's speech on the radio on Sunday, look it up and recommend you to do so. So Ira, again, thank you. We'll start with the updates about Israel and where we are today. So today it's April 11th, 2024. Over 6 months to the Iron Swords War, 188 days. We still have, unfortunately, 133 people been taken hostage. 36 of them we know that are no longer with us. Actually, now we don't really know even about the other one. I will elaborate in a few minutes. Still more than 120,000 people being displaced. The number of dead that we have, unfortunately, increased to 1,493, addition of 5 in the past week. 4 of them were soldiers in the Commando Brigade, my brigade, when I served in the army. They killed in Gaza Strip on Saturday noon. And the last is Elad Katzir. Elad Katzir from Nir Yitzchak was taken hostage on October 7th. We know was taken hostage alive, and he died by terrorists of Hamas on January. And only this week, the same Commando Brigade that lost 4 soldiers did a very special operation and rescued his body that was deep in the ground in Gaza by very accurate intelligence, and bring him back to be buried in Israel. So again, we know about the hostages and the situation that are there. We're going to go over the fronts. We're going to start with Gaza. As of this week, the majority of the IDF forces left Gaza, basically going to the third phase of the war that we've been talking about for a long, long time. The 98th Division, again, where the Commando Division, when the Commando Brigade sits, the war in Gaza from October 7th, the beginning of the war, left Gaza earlier this week. They were mainly in Khan Yunis, basically leaving only one brigade still in Gaza on the Netzarim corridor. If you remember, we talked about basically the IDF create 2 buffer zones in Gaza. One is from the border 1 kilometer inside Gaza to the west to protect the communities, and one is the Netzarim corridor that basically divides Gaza Strip from the north to the south and preventing Palestinians to go back to the north of Gaza. Very fortified, very well planned and executed. And now the entire brigade is sit over there with tanks and soldiers, preventing them to come back and basically maintaining the achievements that the IDF had in this war. The official reason for the IDF is that we did everything we can in Khan Yunis. Now we withdraw in order to organize and regain forces if and when we'll go to Rafah. But there's no reason, we mentioned it last week, to just stay as sitting ducks inside Gaza. It will give the enemy the opportunities to hit us. The effects of this decision and a few other things that happened in Gaza in the past week. The direct effect is that the millions of people that were in Rafah now can go back to other parts in Gaza, which again will make Rafah be less populated with people and will help us if and when we want to operate inside the Rafah city. The second thing is that the people are going back, saw the destruction in Khan Yunis, in their buildings, and maybe it will have another pressure element on Sinwar or Hamas said to go to some sort of a deal. So this is one thing. The massive war in Gaza Strip is on hold for now. So I think it's important you will know. Again, the most important thing happened is the 3 sons of Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas, basically, who sits in Qatar. 3 of them were eliminated yesterday in a very direct missile shot on Gaza. He has 13, so it's not that he doesn't have his sons anymore, but 3 of them was killed yesterday, and it's continuing. Israel basically continues to have a personal effect on the Hamas and Iran leaders that fight against Israel. And again, I'm not sure how it's going to affect the deal or the conversation happening now, but it is very important thing that we did yesterday. All of them were involved in terrorism. They weren't killed just because they were his sons. They were involved in terrorism. And we know that at least one of them was holding hostages during this war. Part of the third phase, the IDF conducted and started a big operation in the center of Gaza tonight, basically showing the world and Hamas that the war hasn't stopped. It's just changed. Again, one of the goals of this operation is the Netzarim corridor to make it wider and more protected. But still, and showing Hamas and the Palestinians, we're not done just yet. We're just changing the way we're fighting now. One more thing that I think is important, because I know you read all about it all over. The amount of trucks and supply went into Gaza this week was increased by at least 100 trucks a day, going to 300 trucks every day going inside the Gaza Strip. There's a lot of pictures, images that Hamas doesn't want us to see about the markets being open and factories being open, and there's no famine in Gaza as far as we know in Israel. So again, try to balance everything you read, all the different places. And the fifth thing, and maybe the most important, is the ongoing conversation about a possible deal for releasing the hostage. As I'm sure you read all over, we're talking about 40 live hostages, replacing for almost 900 terrorists that Israel will release. Israel has already said yes with a lot of American pressure. And now, as always, Qatar and Hamas are playing a dual game and stalling the answers. I'm not sure that the pressure that the rest of the world is doing on Israel, helping us to get the achievement we want to have. And I read in Israel in several places that one of the things that Hamas said is they're having troubles finding 40 live hostages. I'm not sure if it's right or not, but the fact that they're stalling and stalling and stalling, just showing that, first of all, I don't think they believe that we'll go to Rafah. And it's play for their hands, the situation we're in. And as Israelis, we just want to see our people back home. And I'm sure that you stand with us on that. So this is Gaza for this week. Again, changing by the day and by the minute, but this is Gaza for now. Going to Lebanon, still the most important event happening in Lebanon is the elimination we made last week of Hassan Madawi, the Iranian general in Syria. It's affected basically the entire north front. Israel, on one hand, are very prepared to an Iranian attack all over. And thankfully, the Biden administration stand with Israel once again and said in a speech I think he made yesterday, 2 days ago, the United States will stand with Israel and protect Israel with everything they have. And again, thank you. That's all I can say. I think it sends a very strong message. And even the stories on the news that there is a chance that the United States and Israel will attack together, something will happen. It sends the right message to the Middle East. But again, as you all need to know, the war in the north continues. Houses continue to be attacked by the day. And the situation is still challenging. People are still being displaced. So again, remember that we spoke here with Liat. Don't forget about the north, please. One interesting thing that happened is that the people in Metula, the northern town in Israel, decided to publish pictures of the houses and the evacuated places in Lebanon, south of Lebanon, to show the people of Lebanon what Hezbollah is doing to them. Not sure that it helped, but it's something that I feel that they're trying to do. And the hard pictures, like the houses are destroyed and they are being displaced just like the Israelis, and maybe it will help with the pressure that we're doing on Hezbollah to end this war. If we go to the West Bank, you heard from Daniel last week, and you heard from them in the rally, and afterwards when he made his lecture in the Mid-Island Y. Relatively quiet the past week, and again, the Israeli Arab proven this entire event, this entire war, that even going to Temple Mountain during the Ramadan, relatively very quiet, Jerusalem and the West Bank, and just let's hope it will continue. This is Israel for now. Now I want to pass the torch to Ira to share with us again his story, his experience from being a lone soldier, October 7th, the war, and everything else you want to share with us. Ira, please, and thank you for being here with us.
Dagan, thank you so much for the introduction. Also for the news update. I really appreciate it. So Boker Tov, everyone. Everyone listening right now and everyone listening afterwards. I guess I'll tell you first though that I'll split this up into three things. I'll give a little bit of an introduction to myself, and then I'll talk a little bit about October 7th, and then I'll talk about Gaza. Before I would just also let you guys know that this Sunday night and this Tuesday morning at Midway Jewish Center, I'm actually going to be speaking and telling my full story, a little more than 10-15 minutes. So this is kind of like a sneak peek that you guys get. But if you guys want to come to that, you guys are obviously more than welcome. So other than that, myself, I grew up here on Long Island. I grew up in Plainview. I went to the Schechter School in Long Island from kindergarten through 12th grade. I was in Midway Jewish Center throughout my entire life. And I grew up here. I graduated high school. I moved to college. I went to the University of Delaware. And I graduated at the age of 21. And a few months later, I decided to move to Israel. And I wanted to serve as a lone soldier. And that's what I did. So a lone soldier, for those who don't know, is basically just a soldier in the IDF who doesn't have any parents living in Israel. So half the lone soldiers are actually from abroad, people like me, and the other half there's a lot of Israelis who either are no longer in connection with their parents or their parents may have passed away, and they also get the classification of a lone soldier. So that's what I served. I went to Israel. I served in the IDF in the paratrooper brigade, where I served in the 890th Battalion. So that's a little bit about me in general. I'll skip forward to October 7th. So I think before I even get to October 7th, I need to point out what happened the week before, because we came to the base on October 1st for what was supposed to be 2 weeks before the next time we get a break at home. And it was an important 2 weeks, a 2 weeks that only happens once every 8 months. The second of the 2 weeks was supposed to be this battalion-wide war week, when it happens once every 8 months. And the week before that, which was the week of October 1st, was a full week just to prepare for the war week. And we were supposed to start that war week on October 7th after Shabbat. So everything kind of fell perfectly. That week before, it's kind of crazy thinking that now in hindsight, that for an entire week, we were all basically preparing for a war. We were preparing for this large drill. And then when October 7th came, we were all ready. And that's part of the reason why my battalion was one of the first to be jumped to the taken to the area when this was all unfolding, because we were ready. So that morning of the 7th, I wake up, I hear buzzing on my phone from Red Alert, and next thing you know, my commander barges into the room, and he tells everyone to get up, get up. He says there's a war in the south. He's like, yeah, and he's aggressive, like we gotta go quickly. And now everyone's looking at their phones or seeing what's happening, and then we start. The one thing we see is that there weren't just Red Alerts, terrorists, entered into Sderot. We saw, which was all we saw at that moment. We got ready quickly, and we went outside our base, and we waited for helicopters. Our base is located by the Dead Sea, and this is where the story gets a little bit crazy. So we waited for helicopters, and when they finally arrived, we boarded them, and we flew basically passing the Dead Sea over Jerusalem, and we approached the Gaza Strip, and we were supposed to go to Nachalos, which Nachalos is a base, and there's a kibbutz. It's right on the border, and we heard word that there were terrorists that entered there, and we were going to be. That was our destination. What happened in the phone, like what happened in reality, is that the pilot of the helicopter saw terrorists towards Nachalos, and he decided that we need to land closer inland, like further away from Gaza. So he decides to land where Kibbutz Alumin is, where I don't know the map now, but you can look up where Kibbutz Alumin is, on the other side of the road from Kibbutz Alumin, because we didn't want to get too close to where the terrorists were. As we were approaching the grounds, boom, basically, terrorists shot a rocket at our helicopter. The entire helicopter shook. We felt it. It felt like an earthquake. We were all standing ready to lead the helicopter. And the moment the rocket hits the helicopter, we all lose our footing. We knew we were hit. The pilots tell us to get down. We all crouched down under the windows because next thing you know, you hear gunfire just hitting the helicopter. You hear click, 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 and they didn't want us to be on the row of the they didn't want us to be where the windows were because a bullet could enter through the window. So we got down. The pilot made an emergency landing. What ended up happening is the rocket hit one of the engines, and we were down an engine, so we knew we had to land right there. The pilot also released the gas tank at that point because there's a mechanism to do so, and we make an emergency landing. It's a little bit of a hard landing, but it's nothing, it's not a crash in any stretch of the imagination. We land, they open the door, and we basically run out, and the terrorists that 150, 200 meters from us are shooting in our direction, and you feel it. You hear the bullets going past you. We're in a dirt field, so every single time a bullet hits the ground, you see a proof of dirt go up. And what basically started there was, I'll say, as close to Lexington and Concord that I think you can ever get. They're shooting at us from a few hundred, that 150, 200 meters, and we're just returning fire. And this is actually where one of my friends got injured. He was shot there and he was evacuated right away, which is good for him that he was able to be evacuated. We basically were engaged in a full-on battle right there across from Kibbutz Alumin. We were kind of exchanging fire for a while, and then we see army vehicles approach where the terrorists are. Ended up being Shalich, which is a special forces unit, and they ended up taking on the terrorists closer too. And we started to move to this forest area that was a little bit further away because they wanted to be. We were in a completely open field, and they wanted to be more secluded and more behind trees and rocks and not just in the open. So we move there. We wait for that 20 minutes where we also encounter some terrorists. And after a while, it's kind of just staying there and covering in different directions to make sure that no more terrorists will approach. Our commanders told us to get up, and they said, we're going this way. They said, we're going to a kibbutz. We didn't know which kibbutz. We ended up walking to Kibbutz Bari at that moment, and we arrived there, and I guess the rest is history. The rest, I'll explain more about it during my long speech on Sunday, but we were there, ended up being from 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday through early Tuesday morning at about 8 a.m. So we're there for almost 3 days. There, the first day was nothing short of a movie. There were terrorists all around. We encountered terrorists and thankfully no one in my own platoon. There were people in my battalion who did fall, but no one in my platoon or in my team, which I can thank God for. We were there for a few hours, which was really intense, and then we ended up transitioning to the rescue part, and they basically told us that as more special forces units arrived to the kibbutz, we were then transferred to our new responsibility was to rescue families and to take them out of the homes and to bring them outside the kibbutz, and that's basically what we did for that 3-4 hours in the evening through the night. Really ending around 1 o'clock in the middle of the night. We'd go into homes and we'd basically barge in because they're in their mamad or their safe room. So they're not opening the door. They were also told to go there because there are terrorists, roaming around. So we break into the house. Sometimes we was either in one house where we couldn't open the door, so we went in through the window. We were able to get the window open. We go in, we approach their safe room, And at that point, we tell them, we say we are here from the army, we tell them what unit we're in, and we basically try to convince them that we are here to rescue, that we are soldiers and not terrorists. Most of the time it was right away because they would hear the Hebrew. They would also hear what we'd be saying, and they knew that we were soldiers in the IDF. There were a few instances where there was a little bit more of convincing to do. I think the Stanleys were traumatized, and they knew that there were terrorists coming around, and they didn't want to accidentally open the door, so it took a little bit more convincing. But in the end, we rescued many families. The battalion rescued many families from the kibbutz, and then that was through Saturday night, and then Sunday, there were some more terrorists, and then Monday we basically cleaned out the kibbutz. We went house to house, room to room, on a complete scan, and then I think later Monday they were able to like give a check that the kibbutz Bari was clean as a terrorist. So that's where I was. I'll skip just to Gaza for a few minutes. I was, as the gun said, I was in Gaza for just over 100 days, about 101 days. I spent about 45 of those days in the north. I was along a beach in Gaza City for a few weeks. I was in the neighborhood called Zaytun, which is also in Gaza City, for about a week. Then I moved to Sajaya, which is a neighborhood right along the border, near Nachalos. It's like right next to Nachalos. It's a pretty slummy area. I was there for a little bit over 2.5 weeks. And then I moved to the center of Gaza, where I was there for another 2.5 weeks. I was mainly in the refugee camp El Boulish. And then I moved, or a battalion moved to the south. We were in Khan Yunis. And there we were for about 35 days. 35 days. So that was kind of my stretch in Gaza. I think an important note to mention in Gaza in general is, if you compare Gaza to Beirut, in the first few days of the war compared to Gaza, is in Gaza you saw the difference between what is a battle and what is a war. Everyone I think thinks, and they would tell me, I know, like every moment in Gaza wasn't it crazy, wasn't it this? There were a lot of crazy moments. There were a lot of points where you're in a war. But I would say it's a war. A war is a long thing. A war is not just a 1 day thing. It's not just a few days. It's not a battle. It's a marathon. And I think for us as a combat soldier, one of the main things is to keep that discipline. I think it's easy to have some sort of discipline as a soldier for 2-3 days. But when you're in Gaza for 4 months, it's you need to maintain that, especially because there's a lot of points that are slower. That you're not in this battle. It doesn't always feel like a war. There's many times where in Gaza, and there would be 2-3 days where we wouldn't do anything. We'd just be in a house there. We'd be waiting. We'd be guarding. And there would always be a reason why. We wouldn't just be there for no reason. That's what it would feel like. And you had to, at the switch of the turn, to be able to switch that in your head and to go on a mission or go on some sort of operation where you're no longer in action mode. You have to then have discipline. You have to go in complete a mission. There's a lot more to say. I was in Gaza for 4 months, but Dagan, I don't know if you have any questions. Yeah.
I'm just amazed. First of all, I'm hoping that all of you speaking with a hero, running towards fire, and Ira is not mentioning he was holding the machine gun. Like, he was the most important man in his platoon. So it's crazy to go from, as you said, the switch from being in your base to a battle to a war when you're only 21, 22. How does it feel like going on the plane when people are firing at you and then go inside Gaza? How did you felt?
So I'll tell you that first day when I was in the helicopter, the moment we were hit, and then we knew that they were shooting at us, the adrenaline was up to here. I think for most of the day, that specific day, there was such a high adrenaline that especially with the whole helicopter incident, you're not really thinking at that moment, because you're in the moment. I think if you switch it into Gaza, when it's a much longer thing, I was there for much longer, and you had the time to think. There are some thoughts that come into your head. You're definitely more scared. You're definitely more cautious with things because your adrenaline is not up to here. You're normal. And I'll also say, I obviously decided to move to Israel and to serve in the IDF, but I don't think anyone expects this type of war, and I don't think anyone expects a war of this magnitude. That this is the largest war Israel, you could say, has ever faced. Definitely since '73 when the Yom Kippur War happened, but probably even before. To be a part of that is definitely a meaningful thing, but it's also a crazy thing. And I'm definitely happy to be on the other side, safe.
I think that's what's bravery. It's in the end. It's not adrenaline. It's be afraid, as you mentioned in Gaza, and stay there, and keep on fighting with your friends. For 100, I cannot even imagine. Like 100 days being with boots and uniform and in war situation and vest, yeah. Yeah. So I cannot even imagine. I can only urge you, all of you, go outside and listen to Ira's full story. It's an amazing and one-of-a-time opportunity to go inside the head of a warrior that was there in the most chaotic situation that Israel has ever faced in the 76 years that Israel exists. So again, Ira, thank you for sharing with us your story, and thank you for coming back here to Long Island. Ira is here. He's probably going to do a lot of speeches. So look him up, and we're going to call him in every opportunity we have. So thank you.
תודה רבה.
Now I'm going to do something that I haven't done before, but I do want to share a screen with you, just to show you again, when we talk about the Netzarim corridor, what exactly how Gaza look like, basically. If Amit will allow me to share a screen. That's all. And until that will happen, okay, now I can share the screen. Again, hopefully you can see now. You can see now that this is Gaza, and basically the IDF create two corridors. One is the buffer zone that we talked about, is from the border to the west, which we talked about, the 20,000 Palestinians used to live there, and they won't be able to live there anymore, but it's in order to protect the communities and give them the sense of security to come back. And the second is the Netzarim corridor. That it's, as you can see, from Bari to the sea, the real sea, and dividing Gaza from the north to the center and to the south. So that Gaza will look like now and at the end of the war, when the IDF said we're going to change the reality, this is how this reality is going to change. So just want you to have that picture in mind. And we talked about buffer zones. Do we need to create one in the north? Do we need to create one with Jordan? It's a good question, but this is the situation in Gaza now. And the last thing I would say that if you have any other subjects or issues that you want me to address on those sessions, please, I'm sending you every week, try to do it Monday or Tuesday, an email about who's going to be our next guest, and with all the recordings and resources that I have to share with you. Any ideas, thought, people you may know that you think will be of interest to the other community of Long Island, please send them my way, so we'll be able to give them this stage to share with us their insights. Thank you all again for being with us today. Wish us all a quiet and pleasant weekend, and see you all next week. Bye-bye.